Hey guys, alright, today we are watching another Unknown 5 video. This time, 10 of the bloodiest battles in history. Well, the image we're seeing right now is the charge of the Hussars, and I'm guessing, I don't know if the Battle of Vienna is one of them. I don't think it is. Now, by bloodiest, are they going to go by deaths, or are they going to go by just total casualties? I'm going to assume total casualties. And casualties, of course, is incorporating not just death, but also injuries, non-fatal, fatal, blah 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 blah. And for one, Stalingrad is going to be number one, I believe, because just the sheer amount that were there. Leningrad, I think, should be on the list. Some battles the Mongols had should be on the list. I believe Baghdad will be on the list. I think the Mongols did something. They did something to one city. I can't remember if it was Baghdad or some other city, in which they I think killed like 1 million people or something, or caused like 1 million casualties or something. It was crazy. And then of course there will be one or two battles from World War One, the Battle of the Somme, and maybe the Battle of Verdun will be on this list as well. So that's like 5 battles I think I've listed. So let's go ahead and see if the 5 battles I've listed are right.
10 of the bloodiest battles in history that you may not have heard of before.
May not have heard of before? Ooh, that's a claim.
Number 10, the Battle of Magnesia.
Oh. Huh.
Fought in 190 BC, Magnesia was the final battle of the Roman Seleucid War, and was fought in western Anatolia, which is in modern-day Turkey. The Romans inflicted a heavy...
You know what? Not heard of this battle. I mean, probably have heard of the after effects of this battle, but not really the battle itself.
...defeat on the Seleucid Empire, and are estimated to have lost just 300 men compared to losses of over 50,000 for the Seleucid Empire. By modern standards, this number may seem low, but bear in mind that these casualties were all inflicted up close and personal by spear and sword.
And also, world population at the time was not... I don't think it was over 100 million by this time. Or if it was still under 200. Not sure. Not too sure.
Number 9, the Battle of Plateau. Taking place in 479 BC, this giant battle pit a Greek city-state alliance that included Sparta and Athens against the might of the Persian Empire.
Oh.
This was the final battle of the second Persian invasion of Greece, and it's not hard to see why. Ancient sources put the Persian losses at between 300,000 to 500,000 men.
Damn.
Although such numbers are most probably ancient Greek propaganda, it is clear that the invading Persians suffered a bloody and convincing defeat. Suddenly things escalated as the Greek...
Let's be real here. I think this battle probably, especially at the time, so at this time period, at the height of the Achaemenid Empire, around the time that they'd be invading Greece, I believe the Achaemenids had 25% of the world's population at the time inside of their large empire. Now, and back then when we look at how armies were assembled, and especially the size of Greece, I don't think Persia would have devoted that many men to invading Greece. I think it's more reasonable. Now, this is just me going off of contextual information. This is not me reading. I don't know any information really about this battle. I'm just going off of contextual information based on what I know of the time period and later time periods and how armies, how big armies were in later time periods when there were more people around. I think realistically, more believably, the army that the Persians had at most would have been 100,000 at this time period. Because I just do not see them managing with the total amount of people in their nation at this time, being able to also then have a steady enough supply stream to keep an army of that size fed, even for a campaign into Greece, because Greece is mountainous, so that's also going to slow that massive army down immensely. Maybe this 300,000 size is like, all right, they had 100,000 actual soldiers. that 300,000 to 500,000, all those extra people are the camp followers, the wives, or whatever, maybe. I don't know. But I do not believe a number. I don't really want to believe a number that big for this time period.
Declines appeared to break and retreat, whilst falling back to a new defensive position. Seizing what they saw as a golden opportunity, the Persians attacked. However, the Greek heavy infantry stood their ground and crushed the lighter Persian infantry. The majority of the remaining Persian forces were trapped in their camp and put to the sword by the wrathful Greeks, thus ending the second Persian invasion of Greece. Number 8. The Battle of Leipzig.
Ooh.
Also known as the Battle of the Nations, this battle was epic in scale.
Ooh, I like that, epic. All right, so this would be Napoleon, right? Battle of Leipzig? I think so.
And took place
I think
between
we
the
watched that in the
16th and
Napoleonic
19th of
episode.
October, 1813, at Leipzig in Saxony, which is in modern-day Germany. On one side were the allied forces of Russia, Sweden, Austria, and Prussia. Opposing them, the might of Napoleonic France, backed up with Polish, Italian, and German soldiers, involving nearly 600,000 troops, and with total casualties estimated.
Now, see, 600,000 men, and this would not happen until the 1800s. Whereas then you're telling me that there was an army of like 300 to 500,000 fighting in Greece, like 1,400 years before this. I don't want to see that's where my contextual information comes in, and I'm like, I don't think it's that big, right? Now, obviously, not a Greek historian, not a Persian historian. So I cannot really speak too much on it, aside from just my understanding of, well, warfare and the understanding of population sizes and whatnot.
Estimated in the range of 100,000. This was the largest pre-World War I battle in Europe, and the bloodiest battle of the Napoleonic War. The use of over 2,000 cannons and such concentrated numbers of troops account for the bloody nature of this battle.
2,000
Leipzig
cannons.
was a grim foreshadowing of the horrors of modern warfare that the world would be experiencing just 100 years in the future. Leipzig also marked the first time that Napoleon was decisively defeated, and he was shortly after forced to abdicate and sent into exile on Elba. Number 7. The Battle of Mukden. This was the last major land battle of the Russo-Japanese War, and took place from the 20th of February to the...
I don't know anything about the Russo-Japanese War.
10th of March 1905, near Mukden in Manchuria. The Russian army of 340,000 men were defending against an attacking Japanese army of 280,000, making it the largest battle since the Battle of Leipzig back in 1813.
Damn.
By the end of the battle, 88,000 Russian and 75,000 Japanese losses had been inflicted, for a total of 163,000 casualties. Almost encircled by the onslaught of the Japanese, the Russian army was forced to retreat in disorder, and Russia was pushed out of southern Manchuria permanently. Europeans were left in shock that such a small Asian empire could defeat a massive and powerful European empire in open battle. The myth of European invincibility had been shattered. Number 6. The Battle of Kursk.
Ooh,
one of the largest
Kursk,
armored
okay.
battles in history.
So far, we have not gotten to any of the battles that I have said. Not quite yet.
Kursk was the scene of an incredible level of death and destruction on both the German
Biggest
and
tank
Soviet
battle, right?
sides. Taking place during the Second World War in July 1943, the Battle of Kursk is considered the final strategic German offensive on the Eastern Front, and involved over 8,000 tanks and 3 million soldiers.
Damn.
The Soviets were warned well in advance of the German offensive, and as such had ample time to prepare their defences. By the time the German attack came, they were faced with a 155-mile deep network of anti-tank guns, minefields, and deep defences. The attack was halted and the German army was pushed back. It's estimated that by the end of the offensive, a total of 250,000 casualties had been inflicted on both sides, along with the loss of over 3,000 tanks and assault guns. The losses suffered by the Germans and the utter failure of the offensive makes the Battle of Kursk one of the major turning points of World War II. Number 5. The Battle of Digori.
I've not... You know what? I've probably heard of it. Just not recognize the name.
Fought on August the 12th, 1121, between the Kingdom of Georgia and the Seljuk Empire, the Battle of Digori involved an estimated 300,000 to 600,000 men, depending on which sources you believe, and resulted in as many as 400,000 casualties, although this figure is somewhat unreliable. At this time, the Kingdom of Georgia was a tributary of the much larger Seljuk Empire to the south. However, having had great success during the First Crusade, King David IV of Georgia was able to reclaim lands that had been previously lost, and bolstered by this success, he ended all tribute to the Seljuks in 1096.
Ooh, ballsy.
Concerned by the activities of this upstart Christian kingdom, the Seljuks marched a coalition of Muslim armies into the Georgian valley of Trialeti to crush all opposition. Although the numbers involved are disputed, it's accepted that the Georgians were massively outnumbered, with perhaps just 50,000 men against anywhere from 200,000 to 600,000 Seljuks. The Georgian king,
At this time period, I'd say max 300,000, and that's pushing it. I'd say more reasonably 200,000 is also kind of for that Middle East at this time. I'd say 200,000 is probable. Still rare, but hence why this would become one of the bloodiest battles in history, I guess.
had secretly deployed a large portion of his army in a pincer movement and attacked head-on with the remainder of his forces. The Seljuk army broke under the onslaught, escaping through a gap in the rear. However, few of them would live to see their homes again. The Georgian cavalry relentlessly pursued the fleeing Seljuk soldiers, putting the majority of them to the sword.
And based on that information from how the battle went, it sounds like that army was made up of not well-trained soldiers, so it's not professional knights or anything, or the Middle Eastern equivalent of what a knight would be. And so it was probably peasantry. So you know what? That 200,000 number is even more probable.
Number 4. The Battle of Nava.
Harva.
Fought in Estonia over the course of 6 months in 1944, this was one of the bloodiest battles between the Germans and the Soviets on the Eastern Front, with estimated casualties of over 500,000, nearly 90% of which were suffered by the Soviet army. The battle was set into motion at the insistence of Stalin, who wanted to seize control of Estonia to use as a base for future attacks against Finland and East Prussia. Holding well-fortified defensive positions behind the river Nava, the Germans made the Red Army pay dearly for Stalin's ambitions and demonstrated that the war was far from over. Number 3. The Battle of Wuhan. Part of the Second Sino-Japanese War, the Battle of Wuhan was giant in scale and took place between the 11th of June and 27th of...
Oh my god. Yeah, I just realized as he's talking. In my predictions, I did not say any battles in China between the Japanese and Chinese in World War II. Ooh, I wonder if Nanking is going to be above this one, and then number 1's going to be Stalingrad. Number 1 is definitely going to be Stalingrad. I think that's obvious.
Of October 1938. 1 million Chinese soldiers were gathered to defend the city of Wuhan against an attacking army of 350,000 Japanese. Wuhan was the second largest city in China at the time and had become the major economic, political and military hub of the country, and as such its defense was vital. To delay the attacking Japanese, the Chinese made the decision to open up the...
If this guy shoots, and that guy back there, that man is going to go deaf. And so is that guy back there. Gonna go deaf as you ain't gonna be hearing shit.
Dikes of the Yellow River. The resulting flood did delay the Japanese army, but at the cost of 500,000 civilian deaths.
Oh yeah.
This action gave the Chinese time to bolster their defences, and although the city was eventually lost, the heavy casualties suffered by the Japanese meant that no further offensives were launched in China.
And I believe this, the flooding of this river by the Chinese nationalists, so led by Chiang Kai-shek, I believe because of this would be one of the things that Mao Zedong would use as leverage to build support for himself, and also just because Chiang Kai-shek flooded his own people and killed them. And this would cause him to lose a lot of support when World War II would end, I believe, if it's what I'm thinking of.
Until 1944. Japanese hopes of destroying the main Chinese army and forcing a surrender were dashed. By the end of the battle, 400,000 Chinese and 140,000 Japanese casualties had been inflicted, for a total of 540,000 casualties. Number 2. The Battle of Chongping. More massacre than battle. This slaughter took place in ancient China in July 260 BC between the warring states of Qin and Zhao. En route to a Qin fortress, the Zhao army of over 400,000 men was surrounded and trapped by the Qin. After 46 days under siege and multiple attempts to break out of the trap, the Zhao army ran out of food and water and surrendered. The captured soldiers were executed and are said to have been put to death by being buried alive. Only 240 of the 400,000 strong Zhao army were allowed to live, and they were released to spread terror of the events that took place to the rest of their countrymen. The Qin forces did not escape unscathed either, taking over 150,000 casualties during the battle, for a total of over 650,000 combined losses at Chongping. The Zhao were left broken, paving the way for the Qin to unite all of China in 221 BC. Number 1. The Battle of Borodino.
You know what? He did say that these were the bloodiest battles that you probably have not heard of, so you know what? Acceptable.
Fought on September the 7th, 1812, between 190,000 French and 160,000 Russian soldiers.
And he also did not say that these were the 10 bloodiest battles. He said that these are 10 of the bloodiest battles. You know what? Grammatical difference.
By the end of a single day of combat,
so this
70,000 casualties had been inflicted, making it the deadliest single day of the entire Napoleonic War. Even by modern warfare standards, this rate of casualties for just one day of combat is staggering. But when you consider that no automatic weapons or modern technology were being used, in my view this becomes the bloodiest single battle in history. The battle took place during Napoleon's invasion of Russia, and the Russian stand at Borodino was their last-ditch effort to prevent the French from taking Moscow. Although the Russians were pushed back, and Moscow lost just a week later, the Russian army was not decisively defeated, and as such, Napoleon was unable to force a Russian surrender. The Russians simply retreated back into the vastness of their country and continued to defy Napoleon. With 35,000 French casualties suffered, Borodino is considered a Pyrrhic victory for Napoleon. Battered, exhausted, undersupplied and overstretched, the French army was forced to eventually retreat back from Moscow in terrible winter conditions, losing many more thousands to the cold, starvation and disease. So that's my choice for 10 of history's bloodiest battles. Which battles did I miss?
You know what? I like this list. I like Unknown 5's content. I think he does a great job here. This was definitely one of his older videos, just based off of the length of the video itself. I think his newer ones typically he does put out longer form content now. But yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I hope you guys did as well. Remember to leave a suggestion down below for what you want to see me react to next, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.